The Gutnik Chumash highlights a set of 4 questions recorded in the Sicha to Parshat Chayei Sarah, volume 35, regarding the commentary Rashi to the descriptive Hamachpelah used by Avraham to identify the location in which he wished to bury Sarah his wife. The first of the 4 questions is directed to the first option for Machpelah, that it was a Bayit Va'aliyah al-Gabav, a 2-storied structure. The actual request that Avraham made, as recorded in Bereshit 23:9, was V'yitein li et ma'arat hamachpelah asher lo. The ma'arat translates to be a cave, and is generally a natural occurrence of an open space located within a rock formation. In his commentary, Rashi describes the ma'arat hamachpelah as a double-storied bayit, which is generally a structure in which people live, as opposed to a cave. The fact that Sarah was buried within the structure of this bayit is not necessarily problematic, as, for example, nowadays, as well over 110 individuals lie buried in Westminster Abbey, not within the abbey itself, but in large areas beneath the structure. Did people in the days of Avraham live in a bayit? Well, certainly not the bayit that we are used to today, but by our standards, primitive structures with walls made out of adobe, mud bricks with a high clay content. So therefore, the assertion that the Machpelah was a Bayit Va'aliyah, a 2-storied structure, was possible. The only problem, as noted earlier, was the Machpelah is a descriptive for the Ma'ara, a cave. In his commentary, Rashi provides us with 2 options. 1, the Bayit Va'aliyah, a 2-storied structure, and option 2, a cave that was so called not on the way that it was built, but rather a descriptive of its contents. In this case, it was the final resting place for the Zugot. The Rebbe maintains that when Rashi provides us with 2 options, we activate the multiple options rule. Firstly, the shortcoming in option 1 for which we require an option 2, the shortcoming of option 2 for which there is an option 1, and the preference from the standpoint of Pshuta Shel Mikra that Rashi has for option 1 over option 2, in that it is recorded first, indicating that option 1 was the preferred option. Problem 3 was the challenge that the Ramban mounts in his rejection of Rashi's position. Ramban notes that the narrator of the Chumash regards Machpelah as the name of the region in which Ephron owned property. If that be the case, what basis from within the Pshuta Shel Mikra does Rashi have in defining the Machpelah as referring to the Zugot, couples that were buried or were to be buried in that location? Problem 4 is somewhat more complex in that it is built upon some assumptions. One of which, noted by the Ramban, is that Ephron did not realize when he responded in Pasuk Tet Vav, Eretz Arba Me'ot Shekel Kesef Beini Ubencha Mahi, that the Ma'ara contained the last resting place of Adam and Chava, and hence he was willing to give or sell the property at or below market value. This assumption is quite reasonable in that there was no reason for Ephron, who was not related to Avraham, and hence would not be privy to the oral histories that were handed down from generation to generation. As such, it is unlikely that he would be aware that Adam and Chava had been buried on his land 1154 years earlier. Avraham, as a direct descendant of Adam and Chava, would have found this information important, not unlike the fact that high-profile individuals such as the Rambam, David HaMelech, and so on and so forth, when and where these individuals were buried, is common knowledge thousands of years later. On this assumption, one could ask, why is it that when Avraham made his request to the elders of the community that they should intercede on his behalf with Ephron, he described the land as the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, which might have been meaningful to Avraham as the burial place of Adam and Chava, but would certainly have been meaningless to Ephron. Rephrased differently, the request from Avraham should have been V'yitein li et ha'ma'ara asher lo, as when Pasuk Yud Zayin informs us of the actual transfer. The wording is Vayakam Sedei Ephron Asher b'Machpelah, the property belonging to Ephron located in Machpelah region, and specifically the field, the caves, and all trees throughout the Sdei Ephron was transferred to Avraham. In summary, problem number 1 was the change in terminology by Rashi in referring to the Me'arat Machpelah as a bayit rather than a cave. Problem 2 will address the issue of a second commentary. Problem number 3 is dealing with the challenge from the Ramban, who maintains that Rashi is incorrect in maintaining that the Machpelah component was due to the fact that the Zugot were buried there, when evidence from the text is that Machpelah was the name of the land or the region of the Sadeh belonging to Ephron. And finally, how would Rashi explain the initial request of Avraham to the Bnei Chet that he wished to purchase the Ma'arat HaMachpelah and Machpelah referred to the Zugot? This information would not have resonated to the Bnei Chet nor to Ephron, as it would suggest that Ephron was aware of the fact that Adam and Chava were buried in a cave belonging to him. The Sikha then goes on to rework the commentary of Rashi, and in doing so responds to the 4 questions that had been raised.